Good morning and welcome to the Sunday service. It's the first Sunday of the year 2025. So again, Happy New Year for everybody. Um, right now, Reverend Ratnasara is going to lead the morning meditation. After meditation, our good friends Sradha is going to give a Dhamma talk. After that, we have chanting, question and answer and chanting. So right now, Ratnasara, you can start your meditation.
Good morning, everybody. Now we are going to practice the loving kindness meditation. First of all, have a comfortable position and please close your eyes gently and relax your whole body. Take a long breath. Breathe out slowly. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now I am going to teach you how to practice the loving kindness meditation, so you all can practice and silently in your mind after me repeat, may I be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to me. May no difficulties come to me. May no problems come to me. May I find fulfillment. And also be patient, courage, understanding, and determination to meet or overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May my parents be well and happy, peaceful, and free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May no problems come to them. May they also find fulfillment. May there be patience, courage, understanding, and determination to meet or overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May my husband, may my wife, may my all kids and my relatives be well and happy, peaceful, free from suffering. May no harm come to them. May no problems come to them. May no difficulties come to them. May they also find fulfillment. Be patient, courage, understanding, and determination to meet or overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. May my friends and my teachers and all Dhamma teachers be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them, may no difficulties come to them, may no problems come to them. May they also find fulfillment. Be patient, courage, understanding, and determination. My neighbors, all living beings, and all animals in this planet and all the planets, and in this world and all the worlds, living beings, unliving beings, be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them, may no difficulties come to them, may no problems come to them. May they also have fulfillment. Be patient, courage, understanding, and determination. If someone try to hate me, if someone try to compassion me, if someone try to blame me, those kind of people also be well and happy, peaceful and free from suffering. May no harm come to them, may no problems come to them, may no difficulties come to them. May they also find fulfillment. Be patient, courage, understanding, and determination to meet overcome inevitable difficulties, problems, and failures in life. If you have a specific person, you can spread the loving kindness meditation mentioning his name silently in your mind, or you can practice this meditation again and again until you hear the bell.
daughter, Reverend Sradha, I think since 1995 or 94, he's coming to our temple and learn Buddhism with late Venerable Dr. Karma Dhamma and late Venerable Dr. Ratan Saran. And he used to come and do a lot of work in our temple those days. Still he's coming and working with us every time. So Sradha, thank you for all the help for the temple and being with us. And so you can start your Dhamma talk right now.
Thank you, Reverend Shanti. Is this on? Yeah. There we go. First of all, Happy New Year to everyone. And we hope this New Year brings you joy and health. And I had a different topic I was going to talk about today. Namely, I wanted to talk about the influence on me on Buddhist art. But last Sunday, Reverend Shanti gave a little talk, and he used the word kindness. And he said he hoped we would be kinder in this year or practice kindness. And that truly resonated with me. So my talk went out the window. I thought there was something more important that I would like to talk. I haven't given a Dharma talk in a long time. So I don't consider myself a scholar. And so I get intimidated by speaking in front of the monks that I'm giving the Dharma talk. I mean, what do they have to learn from me? But with Reverend Shanti's statement, I suddenly thought the first word that popped into my mind was gratitude, and the importance of gratitude within Buddhism. And I'd like to start with this quote that most of us know that the Buddha said about gratitude, which I love. Let us rise up and be thankful. For if we didn't learn a lot, at least we learned a little. And if we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. And if we didn't get sick, at least we didn't die. So gratitude was stuck in my mind as I began thinking about what I was going to say. And I first of all would like to start with some gratitude. You know, I think I'm grateful to being alive. And I'm grateful that in this lifetime I found Buddhism. And I'm grateful for this temple. And grateful for my teacher, my original teacher, Reverend Karuna, who was really a piece of work, an absolutely wonderful, wonderful woman, and a great teacher. Now, she wasn't always the nicest person. She could be very difficult. She had a cane that she would occasionally swat at you. But I never really met a person like her. This woman she could be really angry at one minute, and the next minute it's totally forgotten. She totally was someone who lived in the moment. And her teaching was not only in the classes we took, but Kashanti and I would have lunch with her for nearly, I don't know how many years after the service, sometimes with other people, and it eventually got to be just the three of us every Sunday. And somehow in the private conversations there is where I learned so much about Buddhism. And she was beginning to get ill. The beginning, you could tell, of Alzheimer's, of which she eventually died from the complications of. And I give her credit. She was smart enough to know maybe she should have retired a little sooner, but she was smart enough to know that her time was up here. And she could live in that moment. And I remember we were walking her home, and she told Kashanti and I, she said, I'm retiring in a bit, and I'm turning the temple over to Reverend Shanti. And we all have to be grateful for Reverend Karuna and her teachings. When she started this temple with Thich Thien An in 1970, when he was teaching at UCLA, and she came to him and said, you should stay here to bring the Dharma to Los Angeles. And he died in 1980, and she was named the abbess of the temple. So we all wouldn't be sitting here if it weren't for her. And we all wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for our Reverend Shanti, who, when he took over, the last couple of years, Reverend Karuna was not her usual self. And there was a lot here that had to be taken care of. And the burden he faces is enormous. Do you know? I don't think he set out to be doing all he's doing. But we sit here because of his grace and his commitment to all of us and to this temple. And I'm grateful to these monks who are sitting near us. Chandasara, Reverend Ratnasara, Reverend Pandaloka, who bring joy to this temple. And this gentleman here, Anandata, who gives great Dharma talks. So we're here, and I think that we should be grateful to these people and appreciate them. And we have Subodha, our resident scholar, you know, and through the years, Reverend Kusala has given very accessible Dharma talks. So we sit here with an eclectic group of personalities that give us comfort and give us a home. Because in a way, this is my home. But what I really wanted to talk about was why Buddhism? Why those of us who haven't been born into it, how did we come here? How did it come to us? And maybe even the monks have to think of that. You know, they're free to disrobe. You know, why do we stay? What is it about, you know, Buddhism? What is it about this path that attracts us? What about it that makes us want to come here every Sunday? And, you know, basically what has happened through the years to me is, I mean, to me, Buddhism answered many of the questions I had about life. That's why I'm here. You know, I was born an Italian Catholic. And Italian Catholics, I have to tell you, are very different than, say, Irish Catholics from what I've seen in my life, okay? The Italian Catholics kind of interpret Catholicism in their own way. They are not, so I grew up with this kind of thinking, like my grandmother was a really wonderful woman who was too busy on Sundays to go to church. But she would say, God understands. God understands what I have to do, which was to feed the family. She was too busy cooking for everybody on that day. So it's their own interpretation of their religion. But when I came to it, I was in search search for answerings to my life questions. Excuse me. I knew this was going to happen. That's okay. My cheat sheet. And so when I first started studying with Reverend Karuna, and there's enough to study here, and I think one has to understand or think about the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and the 5 precepts that we all know. But in essence, to me, all Buddhism is contained within that, and they're to be studied and appreciated. But I would tell Reverend Karuna that I didn't only want to understand it, I appreciated it, but I somehow needed in my life to feel it. To feel it. The connection between mind and heart. And in a way, that's the bodhicitta. To understand the awakening of your mind and heart. And when that happens, and if it ever happens, it's a thing that I strive for. To understand that connection. To feel Buddhism. To feel Buddhism in a way that makes you act, feel, and put it into action in a different way than you normally would have lived your life. And I lived, someone my age, lived through a horrendous time, through the time of AIDS, where I literally watched most of my friends die, most of my colleagues die. Young men in their 20s, early 30s, one after, I can't tell you the amount of funerals I went through these years. And I think a lot of gay people, particularly during that time, almost lived apart from society. We're getting very little help, and very little help from religious organizations also. However, I had 2 introductions. I mean, I always flirted with Buddhism. It always sounded, something really nice, and I read books, but it wasn't Buddhism. It was sort of a hippie interpretation of goodness and blah, blah, blah. But I met during that time a couple of people that were friends who were Buddhists. And they were not born into Buddhism. They became Buddhists. And they were a great curiosity to me. And one of them was a gentleman really from San Francisco who was an actor who appeared in one of my plays, a very good actor. But there was something about him, in his actions, in his demeanor, that was different to me. And I was very curious about him. And then one day he told me he had been a Theravadan Buddhist and I didn't know, what that was, a Theravadan Buddhist. And he was connected to a temple in San Francisco. And he took it very seriously. He didn't, talk about it all the time. It just was who he was. And I watched him in action. And he was one of the first people who died of AIDS. He was a gay man. And he had a partner. And his partner told me about his death. And he was dying in a hospital. And at that time, a lot of nurses and doctors wouldn't go into the room. I mean, no one knew how it was spread or what it was. And his partner said what happened was the head monk, and I love the story, and the other monks from the temple came to the hospital as he was dying, sat on the floor, and chanted. The nurses came and said, "You will have to leave. You cannot stay." And the head monk turned to them and she said, "We will call the police." And the head monk turned to them and said, "Well, if you have to call the police, call the police. But until then, we're not moving." And I guess she got intimidated, and they chanted him until he died. The other friend I had was this woman, Beth, who was with Bernie Glassman. I don't know if any of you know him, but he is one of the original founders of the Zen Center here, and he worked in New York at that time and worked until he died. And he was an ordained Zen priest, and he started the Zen, they were called the Zen Peacemaker Order. And what he did was, Beth was involved with this, which was he started pantries that grew all over first of all, he started a bakery that made money. That was very good. And then he created pantries over New York for homeless people to eat every day. And that grew. He was very good at getting money to do these things. And then he would have this program where people for a week would go on a retreat with him. And the retreat was living as a homeless person. They would live with homeless people to feel that connection, that interconnection of all of us, that to me is the basic thing of Buddhism. That we're not all one, but we are all interconnected. And somehow, when I think about that, that's the moment I feel this idea of no self. Because the self doesn't exist without everybody else, that we are all, in a way, connected, and all of life is connected. And that's why, I love Buddhist art. I love Buddhist poetry. And if you take a look at it, it has so much nature in it. It doesn't deny nature. And it doesn't deny the impermanence of everything. So in a way, that's where I get my lessons of Buddhism, thinking of, I'm always curious how each of us interpret it in our lives. Because the thing to me is Buddhism, I always think I give a talk called Buddhist for Dummies, because that's how I feel, on this path, that I don't know everything. I've studied some of the sutras, but I'm no scholar. But I think that I've always noticed that Buddhism is a religion, is a path filled with actions that we perform on ourselves, trying to incorporate what the Buddha taught. When we do the mindfulness meditation, we start with ourselves. We are trying to improve and sync ourselves to be, I think, a kinder person. And then we reach out and wish that for other people. But even the sitting on a cushion is an action. And then how does that branch out in our lives? And they have, in the tradition of Zen, we have the bodhisattva, the person, the being who exists to help other people and will not reach nirvana until everyone will get there. Well, given the terribleness of some people, we're not going to see that for a long time. But to me, I look for and think about and try to emulate this idea of the actions of a bodhisattva, someone whose concern is beyond themselves. And I, again, lived through a time where I saw many actions of a bodhisattva, particularly during the AIDS epidemic. People who, I was part of a group that were not afraid to walk into the hospital rooms, who fed and cleaned the dying. And that has stayed with me, you know, all my life. And then I found this temple that began to give me the answers of why things happen, why we live, and what we could do about it. And so the mind and heart connection is something that I think about, and I think is in a way the essence in Buddhism, because compassion in Buddhism cannot exist without wisdom. They go together. You know, compassion without with wisdom to me is pity, and pity is different. But when you have compassion, you have to be wise about it too. And I love that kind of realization. And like I said, you know, you study I concentrate on the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, and the Five Precepts. But you also study and discover things in the sutras. Do you know, two of the Mahayana sutras that I love are the Heart Sutra and the Diamond Sutra. And one is referred to as going, and one is referred to as coming. The Heart Sutra explains, not explains, but it's the experience of enlightenment. Do you know? You think of the end of it, we say gate, gate, para, gate, para samgate bodhiswala, which you know, you get many translations of exactly what it is, and I always think that we have to ask the monks because they know it in Sanskrit, and this is just the English, which is gone. I think I remember this. Gone, beyond gone, utterly gone. Enlightenment hail. Whereas the Diamond Sutra is telling us a lot about the path of the Bodhisattva. And that's why it's referring to, you know, one is going, one is coming, how to get there. And I don't think about enlightenment. It's going to be many lifetimes before I could even get there. But I could think about what I could do to improve my life and the life of others. And I find it sometimes in the studying of the art in Buddhism, namely a lot of the writings. I love Zen and Buddhist poetry. Sometimes within 3 lines, it could capture, you know, an idea that will really sit with me forever. And so I encourage, you know, as I said, most of my talk is really for lay people. I encourage you to branch from, you know, not only the sutras, but the art, because I'm always interested in how people incorporate these ideas into their life. Because to me, if a religion can't do that, if it's just something about the other world, it doesn't take to me, you know. Whereas Buddhism does. in that. And some of the poetry is really, really extremely beautiful and extremely telling. And, you know, when you get older, like I am, death is something you think about a lot. And Buddhism really helps you think about it in a more positive way, believe it or not. You know, I had a terrible ordeal where I had to think about death a lot this year because I went through some major surgery. And what I noticed, a very odd thing happened. And I don't know how this happened. I was nervous about it, but I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid. I mean, my literally thought was, so if I die, so what? I don't want to die. I love life. But, and that shocked me. I'm a very fearful person. Yeah, I'm very neurotic. But it didn't. And I don't know if it didn't because I was somehow evolved around that, or it was because of Reverend Shanti. Because Reverend Shanti looked at me, I asked for a blessing, and he said, "You're going to be all right." So I didn't think, I felt like, you know what? I'm just going to believe this guy. So it could have been his fault, I felt that way. But heart and mind on our path, to get it together, I think can help us all. And I just like to read to you a couple of poems that are one kind of a couple of silly poems. They're not silly, but they do resonate with me about death and fear, et cetera, et cetera. And then I want to read to you a poem I've read here a few times, so if you've heard me, but I find it very important about the interconnection of all of us, of the universe. And the first one is, to learn how to die, watch cherry blossoms, observe chrysanthemums. There's something that's very simple in that poem that resonates. Then this other one is, noting the cry of the cicadas suggests they are about to die. You know, nothing in the cry of the cicadas suggests they're about to die. Like, we are not aware of when it is happening or why it is happening. Let me read this other poem and then I will stop, that I find extremely important. And to me, there's so much Buddhism in this particular poem. And this is by Thich Thich Nhat, who is the Dharma brother of Thich Nhat, who is a Dharma brother to our founder, Thich Nhat. It's called Please Call Me by My True Names. I'm not a great reader, so but bear with me. Don't say that I will depart tomorrow. Even today, I am still arriving. Looking deeply, every second I am arriving to a bud on a spring branch, to a tiny bird with still fragile wings, learning to sing in my new nest, to be a caterpillar in the heart of a flower, to be a jewel hiding itself in a stone. I will arrive in order to laugh and to cry, to fear and to hope. The rhythm of my heart is the birth and death of all that is alive. I may be a mayfly, anyway, on the surface of the river, but I am the bird that swoops down to swallow the mayfly. I am the frog swimming happily in the clear water of the pond. I am the grass snake that silently feeds itself on the frog. I am the child in Uganda, all skin and bones, my legs as thin as bamboo sticks. I am the arms merchant selling deadly weapons to Uganda. I am the 12-year-old girl refugee on a small boat who throws herself into the ocean after being raped by a sea pirate. I am the pirate, my heart not capable of seeing and loving. I am the member of the Politburo with plenty of power in my hands. And I am the man who has to pay his debt of blood to my people dying slowly in a forced labor camp. My joy is like spring, so warm it makes flowers bloom all over the earth. My pain is like the river of tears, so vast it fills 4 oceans. Please call me by my true names, so I can hear all the cries and laughter at once, so I can see my joy and my pain are one. Please call me by my true names, so I can wake up and the door of my heart could be left opened, the door of compassion. And I would like to end this talk with my favorite quote from the Diamond Sutra. Thus shall you all think of this fleeting world, a star at dawn, a bubble in a stream, a flash of lightning in a summer cloud, a flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. And I think that describes life. But however, I will end with another little poem that as a child I chanted, and I don't know whether children still chant it, but to me it's a very Buddhist chanting. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Roll, roll, roll your boat. Life is but a dream. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you, Reverend Sradha. It's a wonderful Dhamma talk. Any question, any comment?
I just wanted to say what a wonderful talk that was. Wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
And the other thing that I really appreciate is, especially for my generation, we don't hear much about the AIDS epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know much about it. And I just wanted to say I'm sorry for
Well,
all the suffering that you went through and that you experienced from that.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful for your talk. I enjoyed it, and I feel the same way. I feel very blessed for the people that have been in my life. And I was looking through the photo album of my life, and I see page after page of all the wonderful people. And I tried to make a resolution to never feel sorry for myself because of that.
Right. Very good. That's. I agree. I agree.
The main person, like you said, if it wasn't for Reverend Karuna or if it wasn't for Bhante Shanti, we
Right.
wouldn't be here.
Right.
But
Exactly.
if it wasn't for the Buddha, none of us would be here.
Exactly.
I think, they say that gratitude is the parent of all virtue, and you need to have gratitude.
Yes, I agree with you. Thank you.
Yeah, I also have something to share with you, Sradha. Thank you so much for your wonderful talk.
Oh,
And it's rarely I hear some wonderful talk. I know that every speaker gives wonderful talks, but the way you presented it is that talk was so brilliant and amazing.
so-
Thank you so much. Normally, when we give Dhamma talks, if we become like informative, too much informative, it's very difficult to remember, to go through every one of these explanations. But it's pretty simple. It was pretty simple. The way you presented your Dhamma talk and the way you mixed your living experiences, your past experiences, and the way you showed your gratitude to the Reverend Kalma, Reverend Tikna, and Reverend Shanti, and every one of us. And yeah, your talk is really wonderful. And the other thing is I want to share with you. You said that you are not a scholar, and this is my opinion, and this is my understanding. And to become a great speaker, you don't need to be a scholar. Because you provided evidence and you proved that here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, Doug.
You've been at this for quite a while. Why do you lack confidence in communicating the Dharma?
Pardon?
Why do you lack confidence? You've been at this for quite a while. Why do you lack confidence?
Oh, I'm a nervous human being, that's all.
Is it subsiding with maturity?
Yeah, well, I've lived in my life as in the arts. And so you get, nervous with each new project, each new thing, because in what I do, you are rated instantly. So I guess that's in my bones. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much for your talk. I loved it when I get new insight into my own life and into my journey in Buddhism and learning more from the teachings. And I think that's, you mentioned not being born in it, and I think that's what I gravitate to. That's my own personal journey. You mentioned yours,
Right.
and the whole AIDS epidemic. I'm working with a lot of folks that survived,
Right.
which has deepened my study of Buddhism because of the people that I'm working with. Like the love and compassion piece, practicing gratitude, and being grateful that and I'm also part of that community. So having ancestors that survived that, having elders that survived that.
Right.
That is like a big deal, and you're mentioning it to me just kind of solidifies that.
Right. I forgot to mention, I was going to talk a bit about the Therigatha, which is the poetry of the first women who wrote poetry on Buddhism. They were the first ordained nuns way back then. And I brought a book that you could look at, if you want. Okay? Yes, Doug.
Steve.
Pardon?
Steve.
Rather. Doug, I'm sorry. Sorry, I could speak to Doug here. I know the difference between Steve and Doug. I know who Doug is.
Karuna, I believe, was raised Catholic also.
Yeah.
And I remember one thing she said that when she found Buddhism, she felt that she had come home.
That's exactly.
And it's really stuck with me because I was an Irish Catholic, actually.
Right.
And I felt like when I was about 19, when I was really taking a hard look at this, and I thought, this doesn't really quite work for me. And then I was finding Buddhism, and I thought, wow, these guys look like they're working on the
Right.
truth. And
Well,
I felt like Karuna that I'd come home to a degree.
No, that's exactly how I felt, Steve. And the other thing she said to me, she always said, no one converts to Buddhism.
No one
Converts to Buddhism.
Right.
She said, it's something that's always been there and you eventually find it.
Well said.
Yeah, and that's always stuck with me. Yes?
On that note, can I mention something? Like when I was living in Sri Lanka, I
Right.
was staying in a Buddhist temple. And
You were born into it. That's it.
I was born in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, you were. Come on.
When I was at the temple, it was very surprising because I was also, my family is Catholic. And when I was at the temple, a lot of the most devout people coming to the temple were Catholics. And so they would come and they would get the blessings and they would get the thing. But deep down, they're like Buddhist people.
Yeah.
So that was like something that you don't have to be a Buddhist.
Right.
You don't have to believe Buddha saved you.
Right.
It's open to everyone, and you can continue to be a Catholic
Right.
and come and get advice from the monks.
Yes. Yes, most definitely. It's the actions of people. Are the actions of a
But
Buddhist.
unlike the police, I was forcing them to convert.
Yes.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for your talk, and I sometimes get a little intimidated by the very scholarly people or people who know all this and quote so much, and I have, like, you've read books and I've kind of gone in and out, but it's always been in my heart.
Right.
And it really resonated, and just felt the gratitude and compassion and kindness.
Right.
I was also Catholic. When I was a little girl and we were taught all that love and compassion was one of the things that
Right.
stuck with me.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody. I think it's, we have to chant page 4 and page 10. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham saranam gacchami, Dhammam saranam gacchami, Sangham saranam gacchami.
Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them all. Dueling passions are inexhaustible. I vow to them all. Dharma gates are limitless. I vow to study them all. Buddha's way is supreme. I vow to attain it. May suffering ones be suffering free, and the fear stop fearless being. May the grieving shed all grief, and the sick find health relieved. May Chung Thank you again for everybody. I think we have cookies, tea and cookies. Next Sunday, Dhamma teacher Sai Mahajan, he's going to give a Dhamma talk. Please come and join. And by the way, we have every Sunday around 10 o'clock meditation also. If you like, you can come 10 o'clock and practice the meditation 45 minutes, 10 to 10:45. Then 15 minutes break. Then Sunday service start around 11 o'clock. Please come and join.
I forgot to say one thing that I was going to say.
Yes.
And that is, my gratitude. When I walk in every Sunday, I think of Reverend Benita. And I'm grateful to him. I didn't know him that well, but somehow there was something about him that made me feel peace. And when I told the story, I meant to mention it, when I told the story about John, the actor I had, he had that same quality.
Thank you. When you talk about Vinita, it was almost 2 years.
Yes, I know.
He's passed away. He's passed away sometime
February.
February. Yeah. All right. Thank you again for Sradha and thank you for everybody. We'll see you next Sunday again. By the power of Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha, you all be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.